وسهلا بكل الذين ينضموا للاستماع إلى راديو بلدي أول راديو عربي أمريكي ويعنى بقضايا العرب في المهجر. برامجنا في راديو بلدي كل يوم جمعة من 8 وحتى 9 صباحا مع ليلى الحسيني في بث حي ومباشر عبر wnzk راديو 690 AM. صباح الخير بلدي، صباح الخير لكل مستمعينا.
Welcome to Radio Baladi, the first Arab, Middle Eastern, and American simulcast radio show. Radio Baladi is broadcast every Friday morning on wnzk 690 AM from 8 until 9 Eastern Time on Good Morning Michigan with Layla Al-Husseini. Our call-in number 248-557-3300. And now, stay tuned for the best radio talk show on Arab and American issues with your host, Layla Al-Husseini.
I am Atef Gawad. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and wdmv 700 AM. Good morning. This is Atef Gawad reporting for Radio Baladi from Washington, D.C. We were planning this morning to discuss President Trump's approach to solving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but this issue was overtaken last night by the missile attack into Syria. We still plan to discuss Mideast peace in the second half of this show, but first, the conflict with Syria. With us now to discuss those two issues is Mr. Khalil Hachem, editor of wdmv.com, and hopefully we will be joined later by Professor Professor Hani Bawardi of the University of Michigan. Khalil, good morning.
Good morning to you.
What is the real message behind the missile attack into Syria?
To me, it sounds more like a domestic message than it is an international message, because really there is no plan behind it. You know, firing 50 or so missiles at a runway and destroying a couple aircraft. What is that going to do? Really, it's not going to change much of the formula of the war there. And you know, what kind of message is this? That you can kill people with regular bombs, but you can't kill them with chemical weapons. You know, it seems to be it's more orchestrated to do two things. First, to prove that he is the unpredictable person that we've known that he is. The other thing is that you know, his meeting with the Chinese counterpart and with other people as well, to trying to prove that he's a strong man. To me, is more domestic than anything else, and really. If it doesn't really follow either political or any other, I mean, we need to know what the plan is. Okay, you fire these missiles now, then what? And we really don't know that. We don't know anything. First. Second, there's a legality issue here, is that what gives the United States the legal right to launch such attack? You know, the U.S. really was not the guarantor of the agreement between Russia and Syria in regard to chemical weapons. We don't have hard evidence from independent body that the Syrian government launched the attack, which I'm not saying that they did not, but we really don't have an independent body that really proved this. So there is still a lot of
Okay, Khalil, but a few days earlier, the Trump administration has extended its hand to work with the Syrian government, with Mr. Bashar al-Assad. And the Trump administration clearly said that they do not seek to remove Mr. Assad from power. So what is the situation now? Do you think Mr. Trump still wants to deal with Mr. Assad?
Absolutely. I mean, if the message from the Secretary of State is that this is a limited strike, this is the answer to crossing that line of using chemical weapons, and then the term deal really is very qualified here. Deal on what term? All they said is that it is up to the Syrian people to decide whether they want to keep Mr. Assad or not. Again, there's so many confusions going on right now, and I don't think it's really clear even to the American administration itself. They launched the missiles. We don't know whether they were effective or not. We don't know whether they hit their target or not. And now what? And why did they do it? The only reason they gave us is that the president was moved by the photos, of killing the innocent people, the children being gassed up by the chemical weapons. So it really doesn't do anything. I don't think there is really change in policy here. This is more about Mr. Trump than it is about Mr. Assad.
Okay, stay with us, Mr. Hachem. We have Jerry on the line with a comment or a question, perhaps for you. Go ahead,
Thank
Jerry.
you for taking my call, Dr. Atef Gawad, and to Mr. Khalil Hachem. Good morning. How are you today, sir?
Good morning. How are you?
Good, thank you.
We are good. Go ahead.
Abdul Jawad, I do believe that this missile attack against the regime in Syria is like a warning sign for the regime. This is a warning sign that means we started with one missile, but what's the next step? Nobody knows. Mr. Atef Gawad, Mr. Khalil, I do believe President Donald Trump, the American president, the new president, through the Secretary of the State, Mr. Rex Tillerson, they want to deal with the regime of President Bashar al-Assad just a week ago. But I do believe after he met with the Jordanian King Abdullah, and I could see the reaction from President Donald Trump, like the picture has been changed. Right now, after seeing those horrible pictures, innocent children and babies, they were killed. And I don't care who they were killed by who, by the regime or by the terrorist group, like Russia say, the warplane, a Syrian warplane, a target, a storage, and there was a bunch of chemical. Now the big question is why this chemical weapon is still available in the hand of Syrian government or, let's say, a terrorist group. Don't you think President Putin, when John Kerry, the former Secretary of State, through President Barack Hussein Obama, they were trying to take out President Bashar Assad, but Russia, through President Putin, they interfere and they promise the world that we will clean up this mess of tons of chemical weapon over there. And in Arabic, Dr. Abdul Jawad, Khalil Hachem, in Arabic always we have a good famous phrase. They say, Bidayatul Ghayfi Qatra. For maybe this missile is just a signal, a warning for President of Syria, Bashar al-Assad. And I do believe President Donald Trump is different than his other former president. He does not advertise the military action. He said, we will not tell the world what we're going to do next. We leave it for the time being. So I just want your reaction, Dr. Abdul Jawad and Dr. Khalil Hachem. Thank you very much for taking my call.
Thank you, Jerry. Khalil, do you have any comment?
Well, I think, the issue with one of the issues that Jerry brings up is an important issue, is the fact that the availability of chemical weapons that's still in Syria, and that begs the question, who still has and why, whether the opposition has some, where do they get them, and whether the government has some, why do they still have them? These are really good questions that need to be asked. You need to be asked to the Russians. Those are the people who guarantee that all the chemical weapons would be taken away from the Syrian government. No one guaranteed that the chemical weapons will be taken away from somewhere else. And as you well know, Syria is a porous country right now. You can smuggle in anything you want, and that brings in a more important issue here, which is if it has been smuggled in, what else they have been smuggling in. And, my biggest concern is the protection of civilians. I don't think the action taken by the president is going to protect civilians. President Trump, so far, since taking office, has killed more than 450 innocent people in Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and Libya, who is really asking for justice for these people. So I don't think the issue here is to save civilians, as Jerry was mentioning. I think this is more of a political gesture on behalf of President Trump for domestic approval. If you watch all of the commentary today, they're all saying, well, the president is strong, he is really standing behind. It's more about President Trump than it is about Syria, because what is the plan? I mean, we fire these missiles, then what? We really don't know that.
Okay, Khalil, I just want to be more accurate. When you said President Trump has killed more than 400 people in Syria, obviously, clearly you don't mean that he himself killed those people, but perhaps what you mean is that his policies indirectly led to their death. That would be more acceptable. Some people
under his administration, he gave the orders for these attacks, and he's responsible for it. The buck stops with him.
Right. But we just want to be more accurate in the language we use. Some people say that the attack, the chemical attack, wasn't an intelligent military act simply because knowing there are chemical weapons in that storage place. When you bomb a chemical place, obviously chemical agents will spread in the area, harming the people in the region.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break and I'll be right back.
It's never too early to get your child on the right track. From their first words to first grade, Dreamy Children's Center in Troy works closely with parents to provide an experience that goes beyond early education. The highly qualified and experienced staff use a variety of programs that can help nurture important personality traits like responsibility, independence, problem solving, motivation, and respect. They also have educational programs ranging from preschooling for infants, toddlers, transitional toddlers, and pre-K to Montessori-approved programs and bilingual curriculums for young children. They're open from 6 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., can provide breakfast, lunch, and dinner with snacks in between, and can also arrange for after-school pickup. Dreamy Children's Center in Troy is located at 37373 DeQuinder, just above 16 Mile Road, and can be found on Facebook at Dreamy Children's Center. Ask about the free preschool program. Call today, 248-680-9170, 248-680-9170. Life for Relief and Development is a nonprofit charity that has been providing humanitarian aid and development to people and communities regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background for over 22 years. When disaster occurs here or around the world, Life rushes to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. Life also has development projects that provide medical relief, water purification, educational programs, relief for orphans, and much more. Your help and support can greatly improve these efforts. All donations are tax deductible. For more information, please visit our website at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493. That's lifeusa.org, 248-424-7493.
Accident can change your life in an instant. As a result of a car accident, you may become unemployed. As a result of a car accident, you may need a lot of medical treatment. People think that insurance companies are on their side. Why? Because they're giving them one or two benefits. Are they giving them all the benefits they deserve? How would one know unless you consult with an attorney? Call the law offices of Jumana Kiruz at 248-557-3645. 248-557-3645.
When it comes to reproductive medicine, IVF Michigan Fertility Centers are the recognized leaders. With locations in Bloomfield Hills and 5 other cities in Michigan and Ohio, IVF has experts in all aspects of the field. As a founding member of IVF Michigan Fertility Centers, Dr. Nicholas Shama is one of the leading reproductive endocrinologists in Michigan and Ohio. Dr. Shama has performed over 10,000 IVF cases and has helped thousands of couples fulfill their dreams of parenthood. American board certified in both obstetrics and gynecology and reproductive endocrinology and infertility, Dr. Nicholas Shama is a very caring, compassionate, expert physician that understands not only the medical but also the emotional toil of infertility on his patients. When it's time, get personalized care from Dr. Nicholas Shama at IVF Michigan Fertility Centers in Michigan and Ohio. Call toll-free 855-952-9600, 855-952-9600.
Atef Gawad. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and wdmv 700 AM.
Welcome back to our discussion of the missile strike into Syria. Last night we are discussing the issue with our guest Khalil Hachem, editor of Michigan.com. But before we go back to Mr. Hachem, we have a caller. We have Mr. Abu Jamil on the line. Please go ahead, Mr. Abu Jamil.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Good morning. I want to put a new idea into this. I don't think that it is mostly domestic, although there was some change in the administration and in Mr. Trump's advisors, and the one who was anti-war left probably several days ago, and new people came in around him who are more like warmongers. But some development happened in the last 2 weeks in Syria. There was attack by the terrorist group on 2 locations in Hama and in Damascus, and then the Israeli jet fired close to Tadmor, where they were attacked by the Syrian military, which made the Israeli very anxious about this, because this is a new development. And the Syrian army pushed back against the terrorists in Hama and in Damascus, and they lost, as I said, I read in one report, about 3,000 fighters there. So I think the U.S. had to do something in order to save those terrorists, because they were being attacked. And the strategy here is to attack the air base where those planes are launching, in order to give some room to the terrorists to regroup and regather. So I don't think it's just uncalculated. It was in the right time in order for them to do it. Unfortunately for Syria, but I think that's the thinking of the U.S. administration. Now, how the attack happened, it's possible that we know that the terrorists have their own nerve gas or something else, and I don't think that the Syrian or the Russian Air Force know where those are. So when they attacked the area, they didn't know that they have nerve gas in that area, and that led to the explosion. There is no need to assume that the Syrian regime did that. It's the other way around. You always look at who benefits from a crime, and then you go after them. What I'm surprised about, which confirmed my opinion, is that how fast the U.S. went, because They didn't even wait a couple of days and they want to go quickly. It's like there is an emergency, and that emergency is to save those terrorists and give them some time to breathe because they will be under heavy attack by the Syrian and the Russian army. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abu Jamil. Mr. Hachem, how do you respond to that comment?
You know, we still really, there are a lot of things we don't know. With ISIS and the other, well, we're talking about the opposition in Syria. This is a very loosely defined term. Who is the opposition? We have a variety of different groups. We have some extremists. Most of them are extremists. We have, the original people who truly wanted to make a change in Syria, and were really lost power in the fight to make a change for better Syria. So chiefly right now you have Nusra, you have ISIS, you have other organizations who are very strong militarily in Syria. Could these people benefit from an attack on the Syrian government? Of course they can. Was it orchestrated to do that? We really don't know. But the unintended consequences could be that they would benefit from that. And again, yesterday's or this morning's attack did very minimum damage to the machinery of war in Syria. If it doesn't really follow political or if we don't know what the plan is, it's very minimum gain to ISIS and to others. Did the opposition have the chemical weapons and the Syrians bombed it, as you were trying to ask me earlier? We really don't know. And if it was bombed on purpose, whether you drop the bomb or you bomb the chemical weapons, I think it's the same thing. You're going to inflict the same harm on innocent people. So the responsibility of the government was to avoid these areas, because if they suspected that they have, chemical weapons. And if they didn't even know, we really don't know. I mean, we're still dealing with a lot of, we don't know this and we don't know that and all this. We need an independent body to investigate and find out what's going on, and we don't have that.
Some people also say that the missile strike may be a message to China and North Korea, given the fact that the Chinese president is in Florida. So
Absolutely.
How do you see the connection here?
Absolutely, and this is what I meant by domestic. The Chinese president is in Florida, is meeting with the president. President Trump is trying to signify to the world that military option is always available. I don't have to talk to Congress. I don't have to talk to anybody. If I feel that needs to happen, I can do it. It's about Mr. Trump. It has nothing to do with Syria. It has nothing to do with anybody else. Immediately, the Secretary of State said, this is a limited operation. This is just to retaliate against Syria for the suspected chemical attack, and this is why we did it. This is a one-time deal. And that tells me this is more or less, at the end of the day, this is a very unpredictable president. You never know what he's going to do tomorrow. Yesterday he was saying, I accept Assad. Today he's saying, he went after him and bombed him his airfield. But in general, what we can confer from this is exactly what you said, which is, this is a message to the Chinese, this is a message to the Koreans, this is a message to the world that I'm strong enough, which is President Trump is saying, and military option is always on the table.
Talking about domestic factors here, do you think that the missile strike would also help Mr. Trump enhance his credibility? I mean, ever since he was elected, there wasn't one single solid achievement despite his rhetoric. Do you think that such a missile strike would help him with his credibility problem?
Absolutely. President Trump is a master of misdirection. When everybody was talking about his team's connection and his campaign connections to the Russians, he started telling us about former President Obama spying on him, and he tried to misdirect us that way. And when things don't go wrong, he attacks the media, the dishonest, and everything he says is really false. So, and, as you said, there has been no achievement. He failed on all fronts, you name it, on healthcare. Now he's going to fail on the tax. He's going to fail on making Mexico pay for the wall he wants to build. Everything he promised, he's failed on. And, this is not the first time that an American president would do that. If you recall, President Reagan, when things didn't go his way, he invaded Grenada. And and he declared this big victory. It turned out to be Grenada was a vacant island. So other presidents did the same thing. President Clinton did it. President Bush did it. The father, the son. When things don't go their way, they pick a soft target and then they hit it and then they claim victory. Again, if you monitor all of the talk shows this morning, political talk shows, they're all and they have all of these former military leaders telling us that was a right decision, that showed how precise the president is, that he can take actions, he can do this and he can do that. So far domestically, it has helped him to spruce up his image. I don't know how long he can sustain that. We'll see.
But how much of a help or harm would this missile attack do to the prospect of the political track here? I mean, do you think this might push the different parties in Syria to get back together in Geneva, for example?
It could. If the U.S. plays it right, it could. I mean, this is a very serious message to the Syrians saying that, the U.S. is no longer a sideline here. The previous administration has vacated the Syrian scene to the Russians, and if President Trump follows through with political posturing, on this, it could really be beneficial. And that takes me to the original, idea that I started with. And this is really, to me, my biggest issue and my biggest concern is how do you stop the war? How do you stop the refugees? How do you stop the killing, the innocent people who are caught up in this, regardless of pro-government, against government, ISIS, whatever it is? How do you stop the bleeding? Syria is one of the most beautiful countries. Syrians deserve a better government. And how do you stop all of that? How do you stop it and bring people back to their homes, to their dignity, to their, and Damascus is the oldest, most continuous city, is a beautiful country. Syrians are very intelligent people. They're being destroyed on all fronts, from the government, from, the neighborhood, from Saudi Arabia, from Iran, from Russia, from the United States. Everybody is against the Syrian government. Even Syrians are against themselves as well. So I hope that, that this missile strike would be used as a nudge saying, we're really serious. We want you to go back to the negotiation. We want you to stop this war. We want you to have a better government. Syrians really deserve a better government.
Khalil, would you please stay with us? In the next segment of the show, we will be focusing on the Palestinian issue and Mr. Trump's attempt to renegotiate the peace process, and we will be back after the break.
New Concept Products and Design.
بإدارة ناجي عبود. هل تحتاج فتح مطعم؟ هل تحتاج فتح محل المواد الغذائية؟ هل تحتاج تصاميم وخرائط؟ اتصل بناجي عبود على الرقم 734-744-9796. هل تريد شراء معدات المطابخ والمطاعم وبأسعار مخفضة وتسهيلات بالدافع؟ اتصل بناجي عبود الآن على الرقم 734-744-9796. خصم 5% عند الشراء ب75,000 أو أكثر على كافة المواد. لمزيد من المعلومات زوروا موقعهم الإلكتروني على
www.newconceptproducts.com
أو زوروهم في موقعهم الجديد
31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia.
ناجي عبود، العلامة المميزة في عالم المطابخ.
Ziyad brand. quality products from our family to yours. Ziyad Brothers Importing offers the finest quality products, including brands like Sultan, Kraft, Nestle, Hook, Rico Picon, Donna, and many more. Ask your retailer to carry these fine products because you deserve the very best. For more information, visit our website at www.ziyad.com. That's www.ziyad.com. Ziyad, quality products from our family to yours.
When you're looking for the best in optical care, Dr. Imad Nakash is your doctor to see. With years of experience and thousands of successful procedures performed, you can trust your eyes to Dr. Imad Nakash. See Dr. Imad Nakash and his professional staff for your eye care needs. There's 2 locations to serve you. In Hazel Park, call 248-336-3937. 248-336-3937. In Rochester Hills, call 248-299-3937. That's 248-299-3937.
There's a cool vibe in Detroit these days, the same vibe that's at Marygrove College. We've got great career-oriented degrees that will put you on the path to your future, on campus and online. Why not explore Marygrove? You can start college this spring. Go to marygrove.edu or call 313-927-1240 to get more information. International students pay the same rate as domestic students, and let us empower you.
Welcome to the United States. Please proceed to the passport control.
ماذا يقول؟ إلى أين أذهب؟ ماذا علي أن أفعل؟ لو سمحت، هل تساعدني؟ ماذا قال هذا الرجل في الإعلان؟
ألا تعرف الإنجليزية؟
أعرف، ولكن أساسيات فقط.
عليك بتعلم اللغة.
ولكن أين؟ يوتيكا كوميونيتي سكول ESL بروجرام. أساتذة متخصصون، منهج متميز، يمكنك التسجيل طوال العام. لرسوم التسجيل ومواعيد الفصول الدراسية عليك الاتصال بالهاتف رقم
586-797-6960 586-797-6960.
تحدث اللغة وتعلم نمط الحياة مع يوتيكا كوميونيتي سكول ESL بروجرام. تعلم، تحدث وأكثر.
I am Atef Gawad. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and wdmv 700 AM.
Welcome back to our discussion on Radio Baladi. In the first half of the show, we focused on the U.S. missile attack into Syria, its implications and impact. Now I would like to switch to discuss the Palestinian issue, the Israeli-Palestinian peace process, Mr. Trump's ideas to do that. With me to discuss the issue is Mr. Khalil Hachem, editor of Michigan.com. Mr. Khalil, Mr. Trump has been saying that the two-state solution may not be the only option for resolving the Palestinian-Israeli conflict or dispute. How do you respond to that?
Well, my biggest worry is not really what Mr. Trump was saying about the Palestinian issue. My biggest worry is what the Arabs are really saying. It seems that the Arab countries have abandoned the Palestinian issue, and even some of the Palestinians themselves have really gave up on their issue themselves. The president, when President Trump held the infamous press conference with Mr. Netanyahu, and Mr. Netanyahu convinced him that the two-state solution is not the best solution, but they really didn't tell us what is the best solution, except are they going to continue having what we have right now, which is buying time so Israel can gobble more and more land, and there'll be really no land as it has been, been doing for all these years. or are they going to just make it one country and then Palestinians will become Israelis? We really don't know what's going on, which is, I doubt that would be Israel's plan. Buying time to give Israel more room to do what it needs to do, which is change the demographic area in Israel. That's what Israel is after. And, I don't expect any good solutions coming out of the Trump administration. He is son-in-law, who is a good friend of Mr. Netanyahu. He's a big supporter of Israel. And even the rest of the administration are clueless on what to do with one of the most difficult issues in the world, which is the Palestinian issue.
What do you think King Abdullah and Egyptian President Sisi told Mr. Trump when it comes to the Israeli-Palestinian peace process?
Well, it seems very clear. Each country has a different, unique situation. Mr. Sisi is only worried about the $3 billion that he really gets from the United States for economic help. Previously we learned that most of this money was pocketed by the former president, Mubarak. And now we don't know what Mr. Sisi is really going to do with the money if he continues to get the money. And he is more of a yes man, yes sir kind of guy. I'm talking about President Sisi of Egypt. And he'll be willing to, just maintain the status quo. As for King Abdullah is in a different situation. As you well know, most of, majority of the Jordanians right now are of Palestinian origin. And he has to really walk a very fine line when it comes to the Palestinian issue. King Abdullah has been, and Jordan has always been a buffer country. His father was a good friend of Israel, as you well know, in 73 when Arabs launched the war against Israel. King Hussein traveled at night to Israel to warn them about it, and they didn't believe him. So he has always been a friend of Israel, and King Abdullah is a friend of Israel as well, and he plays more of a delicate situation. I think both are trying to feel Mr. Trump, who has really no experience. He does not have a good team in the White House. He's very unpredictable. It was a more or less, a trip to the United States to more feel out what's going on in the Palestinian issue. And I don't anticipate and see any resolution coming up soon. Mr. Trump blamed all the mess on the Palestinians themselves. He said they're the hateful ones, they're this, they're that. Exactly what they told him to say, because I don't think he's really informed about this issue.
Some people argue that the main reason why some Israelis and also some advisors within the Trump administration, they argue that because Mr. Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian president, is aging now, he's over 80 years old, and they are not certain about what might happen in the West Bank, and if in case there is an independent Palestinian state, those argue that any independent Palestinian state might be overtaken by radicals, radical Muslim terrorists, so-called. What do you think about that argument?
Well, in general, the Palestinians have failed to move from groups and militias into a true structure of any kind of form of governmental unit that would allow them to really prove to the world that they're ready for, to rule. This is one thing. The other thing is that I think this is just an excuse. Whether Mr. Abbas is an old man or not, I don't think Mr. Abbas is really holding the influence of Hamas or any other groups over there, and we don't want to get into, the linguistic definitions of who's terrorist or who's not. It's very difficult, and so now we have to wait until Abbas dies, and hopefully we get somebody else. This is an argument that has been forwarded by the Israelis, saying we really don't have a partner for peace, and we don't have that, and you don't decide who your enemy is going to give you to negotiate, you just negotiate. If Israel's intention is to solve the issue there, they can solve it tomorrow. And the other complication is that you have different groups and different ideas among the Palestinians. Hamas has a totally different vision to what Palestine would be. Abbas and his groups and his cronies, I should say, have a totally different vision of what Palestine would be. And in the meantime, every day they're losing land. If you look at the map from the 90s till now, and you see how much land they continue losing every day, there's going to be a time where it's going to be very difficult to establish a contiguous state that is called Palestine. And it's going to be very difficult to have a place where Palestinians can call a homeland, because they're just losing that connectivity between all of these areas, and more people are coming in. Israelis, right-wing Israelis are coming in to take more land because they believe biblically that God promised them this land, and whoever is on it, they have a right to whoosh them off and take it from them. So the fact that, now we can't have peace because why didn't they have it when he was younger? Why didn't they help the Palestinians establish a better system so they can show Hamas that it can work? So I think we can't really blame the Palestinians as much as we can blame the other part, because they really don't have much. There's a lot of corruption, but they really don't have the experience, and they don't have the know-how, and they don't really have all the needs that they need to put together a good administration.
Some people within the Trump administration are advancing the idea that the next negotiation between Israel and Palestine should include a permanent seat for each of Egypt and Jordan. What do you think is the idea behind that proposal?
This is just to dilute the effectiveness of the Palestinians. In the past, they did not accept the PLO or Arafat himself because they said he's a guerrilla leader. We don't want to talk to him. We talk to somebody else. And then when the Palestinians from the occupied territories were represented in the talks in Oslo, in Madrid, they were represented in the talks, and they really spoke about all of the heartaches that they live day in, and the misery that they live in and day out. Israel was exposed at the time, and it really backfired. And here we're really trying to really get away from the main issue. The issue is between the Palestinians and the Israelis. Let's bring the Egyptians and the Jordanians, and we can talk to them, and then they can talk to the Palestinians. And this is really a failed attempt, and this is trying to dilute whatever the Israelis wants to tell the Palestinians. They can tell them directly. They don't really need to go. And using this leverage by talking to Egypt and Jordan, is they're trying to squeeze both Egypt and Jordan to get concessions from the Palestinians, because both Egypt and Jordan get military, and not military, but economic and financial assistance from the United States. So Israel is trying to use that to its advantage and trying to really dilute the negotiations. And this is really not a good way to go.
Stay with us, Mr. Hachem. We'll be back after the break.
Okay.
Welcome to the United States. Please proceed to the passport control.
ماذا يقول؟ إلى أين أذهب؟ ماذا علي أن أفعل؟ لو سمحت، هل تساعدني؟ ماذا قال هذا الرجل في الإعلان؟
ألا تعرف الإنجليزية؟
أعرف، ولكن أساسيات فقط.
عليك بتعلم اللغة.
ولكن أين؟ يوتيكا كوميونيتي سكول ESL بروجرام، أساتذة متخصصون، منهج متميز، يمكنك التسجيل طوال العام. لرسوم التسجيل ومواعيد الفصول الدراسية عليك الاتصال بالهاتف رقم
586-797-6960 586-797-6960.
تحدث اللغة وتعلم نمط الحياة مع يوتيكا كوميونيتي سكول ESL بروجرام. تعلم، تحدث وأكثر.
آمتي ترافل، هناك من يقدم الخدمة وهناك من يصنعها. آمتي ترافل وكيل معتمد للحج والعمرة، عضو منظمة آياتا، رواد في الحج والعمرة. آمتي ترافل تذاكر سفر، برامج عمرة طوال العام ورحلات حول العالم. آمتي ترافل تعلن عن فتح باب الحجز لأداء فريضة الحج لهذا العام. بادروا بحجز أماكنكم من الآن، أسعارنا متميزة وخدماتنا ممتازة. آمتي ترافل، إدارة نبيل الباشا.
لمزيد من المعلومات اتصلوا على 586-578-9126 586-578-9126 أو زورونا على 28695 براين رود في مدينة وورن. أماتي ترافل، للثقة عنوان. أسواق زمزم الواقع على 24065 أورشاد ليك في مدينة فارمington هيلز ترحب بالجالية العربية والكلدانية. تنزيلات كبيرة على عموم المواد الغذائية في يوم الأربعاء من كل أسبوع. لا تنسوا فريش كاري اوت، جميع انواع المعجنات، وايضا صواني الكمبو المشكله والصمون الحار. لحوم حلال الجاليه العربيه والاسلاميه الملحمه باداره قصاب الجاليه المعروف سلوان جربوع. زوروهم على 24065 اورشاد ليك في مدينه فارمington هيلز او اتصلوا بهم على 248-476-0300. اسواق زمزم للمذاق عنوان. لجميع طلباتكم اتصلوا على 248-476-0300. اسواق زمزم للمعامله الراقية وكرم الضيافة عنوان. المصور حسن الأتات البارع في تسجيل لحظات خاصة بين العروسين يعلن استعداده لتصوير حفلات الزواج، الخطوبة، التناول، الحنة، وبأحدث الكاميرات وبتقنية عالية. اتصلوا باستديو 1 حسن الأتات لجميع مناسباتكم الخاصة والعامة. أسعار تناسب ميزانيتكم مع روعة ودقة في اختيار اللقطات الأجمل. مع استديو 1 اختياركم الأفضل لتسجيل أجمل لحظات العمر. للحجز والاستعلام كول 313-721-6100 313-721-6100.
I am Atef Gawad. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and wdmv 700 AM.
Welcome back to our discussion on Radio Baladi. In the first half of the show, we discussed the U.S. missile strike into Syria. And now we are discussing the Israeli-Palestinian peace process and ideas advanced by Mr. Trump, the new American president. Our guest is Khalil Hachem, editor of Michigan.com. Mr. Hachem, it has been reported that Mr. Trump's advisors have been in touch, in consultation with Israeli settlers. Do you think that move, which is innovative in itself, might help push the peace process or might harm it?
Well, it depends on what what this reaching out intended to do. Is it they're reaching out to assure them that everything will be okay, or they're reaching out to convince them to move from some of the areas that they need to move from? As you well know, what would really solve the issue between the Palestinians and the Israelis? Palestinians want their own state. They're talking about 1967 line. And if we're talking about 1967 line, a good number of these settlers would have to move from that area. So if we're going to move them from that area, then we're going to give Palestinians some piece of land so they can call home. Now we have to define what home is. Is this an independent state? Mr. Netanyahu said this will never happen. He said even if we give even if he gives Palestinians a smaller piece of land to call home, he wants to retain the upper hand when it comes to security, and they can't have an airport, they can't have planes, they can't have any kind of major weapons. So he's going to continue to be in control of their daily lives. So, what is that discussion? Where is that discussion is going to go? Are they going to be giving him a different piece of land so they can move to, or not? Let's keep in mind, most of the settlements in the West Bank are illegal internationally. And why are we talking and discussing this with settlers instead of telling them, listen, this is illegal, you need to move? How about international law? We are so quick to bomb Syria because Syria did something against international law, but when it comes to Israel, we'll look the other way, and we want to go negotiate with those who are taking land against international law. So I really don't see anything coming out of that unless, who's going to convince the settlers really to move out of there? No one.
Israelis, in fact, the Israeli government has been demanding relations with Israel prior to the establishment of any Palestinian state. The Arabs are rejecting that idea.
I missed the first part of the question, Dr. Jawad.
Oh, okay. The Israeli government has been demanding that the Arabs should normalize relations with Israel before the establishment of any Palestinian state. The Arabs are rejecting that. What are the pros and cons here for each argument?
Well, the whole idea is that Israel would accept the partition of Palestine and then address the Palestinian issue, then the Arabic states will normalize relations with Israel. That has always been the standard of the negotiations between Israelis and Arabs. And for Israel to change the game right now, basically Israel is trying to have its cake and eat it too. Israel does not want to solve the Palestinian issue. It's trying to con the Arabs into normalizing relations with them. Most Arabic states now have direct or indirect relations with Israel. Saudi Arabia has relations with Israel. Gulf states have relations with Israel. Jordan does. Most Arabic states except Syria and maybe another country or two, or they really don't have formal relations with Israel. But Lebanon does not. But the rest do. I mean, every day there are talks between and discussions between Saudi officials and Israeli officials, and there has been a lot of reports that Israeli presence in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, in all of these states. So the fact that, but what Israel is trying to do is Israel is trying to take all the cards from the Palestinians, the leverage, from the Palestinians, so the Palestinians would show up to the negotiations really powerless with no card to play. These are just excuses. They're not going to get anywhere, because even though some of the Arab countries who are talking to the Israelis right now cannot publicly, accept it. This is just trying to sandbag them, and it really doesn't get anywhere.
Some people argue that the perceived Iranian threat, the threat from Iran to some Arab countries, that threat is pushing some countries into an implicit alliance with Israel, because Israel obviously doesn't like Iran. So can the Arab countries use that implicit alliance to have an impact on Israel regarding the Palestinian issue?
I strongly doubt it. I strongly doubt that the Arab will have any influence on anybody. They don't even have influence on themselves. What is the Iranian threat, and what countries are being threatened by Iran? I really don't see any direct threat here, except disagreement in policies. And if today, for a long time and for years, the conflict in the Middle East was the Arab-Israeli conflict. It's the conflict between Israel and then the Arabs. And then later on, Israel succeeded in brainwashing the Arabic street, specifically the Sunni Arabic street, that I'm not your enemy, it is Iran your enemy. And now most Sunni Arab countries telling us that it is Iran our enemy, not Israel. So that switch was started by Israel, and I mean, what is the threat? What Iran is threatening? You know, what is it? What is the threat here? I don't understand it. You know, I mean, is Iran changing any government in the area, or is Iran trying to meddle into the Saudi affairs, or the Qatari affairs, or the Bahraini affairs? They're not. I mean, Bahrain is 90% or 80% Shia, 10% Sunni, or 20% Sunni, and Iran never really interfered in that one. And so to exaggerate that, this is something really a bad policy that Israel convinced the Arabs that I'm not your enemy, it is Iran your enemy, to deflect them away from really the main. And then they bought that, and then they're running with it. I really don't, you know, now we want to blame Iran for the fact that Saudi Arabia is being a friend with Israel. You know, they're a friend with Israel because they choose to be. And now that they're friends, why don't they have influence on Israel to really solve the issue? They have really no influence on anybody. And it's really unfortunate. The biggest enemies to the Arabs are the Arabs themselves. Division, and it's very unfortunate. And we're paying the price for that in Syria and Libya and Yemen. You know, in all of these countries, we're going backward, not forward. I don't see any improvement, you know, unless Arabs themselves change and have the pride to really work together and make a change. And I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Mr. Hachem, thank you very much. Khalil Hachem, editor of yourmichigan.com. And that concludes our show this morning. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you again the first Friday of next month. Goodbye.